Face-offs in EA Sports NHL are one of the most confusing aspects of the game. It's not explained well in tutorials, the attributes and abilities are very vague in their descriptions, and if you don't learn the mechanics, you could begin every play without possession of the puck. However, the best part about face-offs are that they require very little skill, and it's almost entirely dependent on knowledge. So here is everything you need to know to become a master at face-offs in NHL. Now, the mechanics of how face-offs work in NHL have largely been unchanged since the introduction of the skill stick almost 2 decades ago. It operates in a rock, paper, scissors format, where every single stance and face-off move that you make has a distinct counter to it. There is no one automatic move that will win every face-off for you. So before we go over all of the face-off types and moves that you can make, let's go over the stances that all face-offs are going to begin with. Let's begin first with the basic forehand. Now in this example here, I'm using Jason Arnott, who is a right-handed player. So to do a basic forehand, you need to hold the right thumbstick to 3 o'clock, which will put him on his forehand, and this will allow you to do any of the forehand-based moves, and again, more on those in just a little bit. And for a left-handed player, it is essentially flipped. All you need to do is hold the right stick to 9 o'clock, and that will allow you to do any of the forehand moves with a lefty. Now, when it comes to the backhand stance, with a right-handed player, you hold the right stick to 9 o'clock, and that will start him in the backhand stance, allowing you to do any of the backhand-based face-off animations. And with a lefty, again, it is essentially flipped. So with a lefty, you want to hold the right thumbstick to 3 o'clock, and that will put you in this backhand stance with a lefty. It is imperative that you begin every puck drop with either the forehand or backhand stance. There are a lot more factors that are not explained in-game that result in face-off wins or losses, and not being in a face-off stance is one of them. Now, the last thing I want to point out when it comes to timing and when you actually make your face-off move with the right thumbstick is you need to watch the referee's hand and make your motion a millisecond after he moves his arm. That is when you need to make your motion, regardless of what it is, to win a face-off. Now let's move on to the chart. If you have Googled how to win face-offs in any of the EA NHL games over the last, again, 2 decades, you've more than likely run across some sort of form of this chart, and it, again, remains largely unchanged. It is going to be confusing and frustrating, but like I said, for you to become a master of face-offs, it only requires knowledge, no skill. So let's break down every single type of face-off move you can do and touch on the counters and what it beats. All right, so let's begin with the basic forehand. Now for these examples, I will be using a right-handed player. So for a lefty, all of this is flipped. Again, you want to get into the forehand stance with a righty, so that is moving the right thumbstick to 3 o'clock. And once the referee moves his hand, you are simply going to drag it down towards 6 o'clock on the right thumbstick, and that is going to give you the basic forehand face-off win. All right, so let's break down the chart for the basic forehand. The checks will indicate that you will win when you do the basic forehand against the tie-up and the deke face-off animation. You are going to lose if your opponent does the forehand stick lift or backhand stick lift. When it comes to the draw or toss-up, this is what is going to be determined by ratings as well as the quick draw zone ability. So imagine you had 99 face-offs and gold quick draw. You are almost always going to win any situation that results in a draw, which is why those two things are so important. Next up, we have the forehand stick lift. So with a right-handed player, you hold the right thumbstick out to 3 o'clock, and when the referee moves his hand, you flick the right thumbstick up towards 12 o'clock, and that will give you a forehand stick lift win. Now, when you do the forehand stick lift, depending on what your opponent is doing, it can also result in a kickback, what we call the kickback, but it operates with the same counters as the forehand stick lift. So taking a look at the chart, the forehand stick lift will win against anyone using the basic forehand as well as the backhand stick lift. Every face-off move will win against the deke, so we can largely ignore that. They will lose against the basic backhand, and then ratings or abilities will determine if you win or lose when going up against the forehand stick lift as well as the tie-up. And then our last forehand move would be the tie-up. So again, with a righty, this is holding the right thumbstick out to 3 o'clock. and then you want to push up on the left thumbstick when the referee moves his hand, and that will give you a tie-up draw win where your winger will come in and collect the puck. So when it comes to the tie-up, you will win against anyone doing the basic backhand, which is the most common face-off that you will run into. But you'll also lose to the basic forehand as well as the backhand stick lift. Forehand stick lift and tie-up will be dependent on abilities and attributes. Now on to the backhand face-offs. We'll start first with the basic backhand. Again, with a right-handed player, you hold the right thumbstick to 9 o'clock to get into the backhand stance. Once the referee moves his hand, you go from 9 o'clock and drag the right thumbstick down to 6 o'clock. That is going to win the puck straight back to your defenseman. Now, the basic backhand, in my opinion, is one of the most important face-offs in the game. And the reason for that is simply there is only one counter to it, and that is the tie-up. If you have 99 face-offs as well as gold quick draw, and you're not at a significant ping disadvantage, you are going to win every single draw that you take until your opponent does a tie-up. On top of that, it is also the most common. So for newer players specifically, when they start to figure out how to actually take face-offs, the basic backhand is really the one that they utilize the most. And that might be why EA has made it where the only way that it's countered is by doing a tie-up. Next, we have the backhand stick lift. Again, with the right-handed player, you would hold the right thumbstick to 9 o'clock. When the referee moves his hand, you go from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and that will give you a stick lift animation and fire the puck back. Now, the backhand stick lift, in my opinion, is one of the best counters that you can use regularly, and the reason for that is if you are someone that is getting tied up a lot, the backhand stick lift will defeat a tie-up. On top of that, when you are facing players that aren't super knowledgeable at taking faceoffs and they line up on the forehand, it also beats a basic forehand. So it is one of the better counters to players that have a slight understanding of how to do faceoffs. And it ends up being one of the most important faceoffs that you do, especially in your defensive zone. More on that in a little bit. And then lastly, we have the backhand tie-up. Again, with a right-handed player, you would hold the right thumbstick to 9 o'clock to be in the backhand stance. And then when the referee moves his hand, you move up on the left thumbstick straight up, and that will tie up your opponent, allowing the winger to crash in and collect the puck. Now, when it comes to the backhand tie-up, it operates the exact same in terms of the counters and things that it beats. As the forehand tie-up, you're just in the backhand stance. This is why, in my opinion, the backhand stance is just a little bit more effective because the basic backhand is so effective against so many different face-off animations. It allows you to switch between that and the tie-up, making your opponent really have to think. And then lastly, we have the deke and shoot face-off moves. These are not going to be effective online and really are only able to be utilized when you are playing against the CPU on rookie. However, how you pull this off is simply by holding down LB or L1, depending on the console you're on. And when the puck is dropped, you flick up on the right thumbstick, and you will dance around your opponent, and you're away with the player that you won the face-off with. And then lastly, we have the shot face-off win. How you pull this off is a completely neutral stance. You don't have either thumb on the thumbstick, and you simply flick up on the right thumbstick when the referee moves his hand, and that will allow you to shoot the puck at the goaltender. In the past few years of NHL, again, this is a completely useless face-off move and something that you can just widely ignore. Now, learning all of the face-off moves as well as remembering the entire counter chart is easily going to be the most difficult part of the face-off mechanics. A lot of people are going to be frustrated and confused by it, and I totally understand. I hope that I was able to break it down as simple as possible for you, but it is simply going to take a lot of repetition and actually taking a look at the face-offs that you take to fully start understanding what counters what. That is simply just going to come with repetition. But now we need to discuss the more advanced aspects of face-offs, because just knowing the counters, while that is the most important part, there are other things that come into play when it comes to winning and losing a face-off. Now let's begin first with the face-off rating. Whether you're playing EA NHL, Hockey Ultimate Team, or Versus, the face-off rating is going to matter. Like I mentioned, anytime that there is a toss-up where you both do the exact same face-off move, or one that results in a toss-up, it is going to be largely determined by the face-off attribute. So if someone has 99 face-off attribute, they will beat anyone that has 98 and below if you do anything that results in a toss-up, such as two players that are both doing the basic backhand face-off move. That can largely be determined by whoever has the higher face-off rating. Now, the other thing you need to keep in mind is the quick draw, zone, and superstar ability. When you're using a player with the gold or silver quick draw ability, it is going to allow you to beat players that just have 99 face-offs as a rating because it is an animation. It helps lower the timing window when you actually make the motion, and it will actually make your centerman move faster once the puck is dropped. It won't allow you to win a draw when your opponent has done the counter to whatever you're doing, but think of it like this. If you have gold quick draw and 99 face-offs, you are essentially going to automatically win any face-off that is a toss-up, which gives you a massive advantage when it comes to winning a face-off. Now let's go over a few face-off plays and situations that you can implement once you become a little bit more knowledgeable at the face-off mechanics. And we're going to start first in the offensive zone with the offensive zone tie-up. Now this is going to be very important on the offensive and defensive side of things when it comes to this specific face-off, but in the offensive zone, what you want to do, whether it's on the forehand or backhand, is you want to go in for a tie-up. And if you are able to win this draw via a tie-up, your far side winger, the one that is lined up against the boards, is going to have a cut right through the face-off dot, and it is going to give you a direct line right to the goaltender, and you're able to fire it far side, whether it's low or upstairs. This is one of the most common goals that you can score off of any offensive zone face-off, especially against someone who does not know how to beat the tie-up. So because of this specific play, this is why I tell people in the defensive zone, if you're going to line up on the backhand, you need to do a stick lift because you cannot lose a tie-up draw. And a tie-up is one of the most common things you'll see from your opponent as well. So in this situation here, you'll see that I'm lined up against my opponent, and I do a backhand stick lift, which beats the tie-up. It allows me to get possession of the puck, and then I'm out of the zone. Even if your opponent just does a basic backhand and they win that draw, it's far less dangerous than if you were to just lose the puck and their far side winger can come and collect it in the middle because of the goal I just showed you. So the last thing I want to show you is when you're taking a draw at center ice, a lot of people, when they win the draw, everyone is sort of at a standstill, and some people can struggle with what to do with the puck. So when you win the draw cleanly, what you want to do is to watch for the player that your opponent controls, and if they attack you with a winger, your winger up in the play will be open. So once you wait for some pressure, you can fire it up to your winger, and then you're into the offensive zone. Something that I like to do, especially when there's one-on-one coverage with a defenseman, is to send it around the boards if I have a winger on the opposite side, like in this play here. You'll almost always beat your opponent's defenseman to the puck, and in this sequence right here, your defenseman will more than likely be open up in the high slot, and you can hammer it home for a one-timer. Now, the last thing I want to bring up when it comes to face-offs is the strategy behind it. Obviously, being able to memorize all of the face-offs and their counters is going to be imperative, but you have to be able to pay attention to your opponent's face-off strategy as well, and the situations that they are doing certain maneuvers.
Stick lift.
And then lastly, you need to understand ping. I'm not going to be someone that pretends it does not exist and it does not impact the game specifically. NHL is impacted by ping because it is a server-based game, potentially more than any other sports game. The amount of inputs and the speed at which the game is played, ping is going to give you a significant advantage. So depending on the server that you connect to, because you are not on peer-to-peer connection, you are both connecting to the same server, someone is usually going to have a closer proximity to that server. So one telltale sign of this is when you are doing a face-off and you lose even though you have done the counter to that player and they still win the draw, that is usually a telltale sign that you're playing against someone who is on a far better connection. It's not always the case, but it is going to happen. There is nothing you can do. The only thing I can suggest is to continue doing the counters because eventually the timing should open up for you, but it is something you're going to have to deal with. If this guide helped you out, let me know in the comments section down below. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Go win some face-offs.